Welcome back to the Management Diary. Tonight we are going all the way to the University of Cambridge. If you've ever thought about going to one of the top universities in the world, then this is Cambridge. And tonight we are having Great Nnamani from Nigeria. He's doing his masters at Cambridge on the fully funded Mastercard Foundation Scholarship. This conversation is going to take you through the application process, his experience, and everything you need to know about this scholarship, including funding, including life at Cambridge, and everything that there is to know. I'm your host, Omar Joseph, and in case you've never listened to the Management Diary, this is where we get to have serious conversation about scholarships, lifestyle, careers, and research. Great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much, Joseph. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome to the podcast. Sometimes I get to give our guests introductions, but then today I think I will ask you to introduce yourself.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. So my name is Great O Nnnamani. I'm from Nigeria, and I'm currently pursuing a master's in development studies at the University of Cambridge through the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship. I have a background in economics from the University of Nigeria, actually, and after which I proceeded to work with a research think tank in Abuja, Nigeria. And I worked there for like 2 years before I got the Mastercard Foundation offer to come over to Cambridge.
When I usually host the scholars, I usually look at them and I'm like, when you were a very young person, mm-hmm. Did you ever think about being at Cambridge? When did you first realize you want to go to Cambridge?
Well, so there are two dimensions to this story. The first dimension is that when I was young, I never envisioned going to Cambridge, though. But I remember that when I was younger, my dad would often, I even shared this on my LinkedIn post as well. Because I was a bit glued to my books, and in a bit, chase me out of my books and make me to do something else, to be like, oh, are you studying at Cambridge? Are you studying at Cambridge? So it's a very famous phase in the Igbo land. It's pronounced as Inagu Cambridge. That's an Igbo language. And
Inagu Cambridge.
Inagu Cambridge. So it means, are you studying at Cambridge? So it's a way parents usually sarcastically make their children children that maybe are a bit overglued to their books. Mm-hmm. So I often heard that from my dad, but I never envisaged that I would end up, at the University of Cambridge. But when it came calling, right, I was very excited and happy, to go ahead and choose Cambridge. Yeah.
I noticed you just said you were glued to your books, and by that fact, you actually ended up getting a first class in your bachelor's in economics. But then it gets me to ask, does it mean that I also need to be, one, glued to my books, and two, get a first class for me to get to Cambridge?
That's a very tricky question.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, you don't need to get a first class to be in Cambridge. It all depends on several factors, though. For some courses, you definitely need a first class because the competition is very high. But I've seen some persons who don't have a first class that even got scholarship offers in Cambridge. So the most important thing is for you to be able to position yourself well and understand the needs and the context of the scholarship. That way you'll be able to shoot your shot. But, getting glued to your books is something that is nice for anybody that wants to be an academician or wants to go to the academic world. Everybody needs to read books, generally. Mm-hmm. So not necessarily glued to them, though.
You should consume information.
Yeah.
Now, about consuming information, what does Mastercard Foundation Scholarship mean to you as a person and generally?
Well, I would say it's been very phenomenal being a Mastercard Foundation Scholar, specifically at the University of Cambridge, because I should mention that the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship has different teams at the different universities. So what is obtainable at the University of Cambridge may not necessarily be what is obtainable at several other universities. Currently, the foundation partners with almost up to 30 universities globally, and about 3 in the Europe, University of Cambridge, University of Oxford, and Sciences Po Paris. So I think for me, it's been very phenomenal and highly impactful. The fact that I get to meet people, young persons who are so keenly interested in revamping Africa, keenly interested in working together to ensure that Africa is resuscitated generally. And it's something I love, right? Having people that are like-minded all around me. And I think one other thing I've got to fall in love about the scholarship is the fact that They're not just interested in offering you scholarships and not interested in your future. They are so keenly interested in your future and what you get to be after the scholarship. So these are the really key things that stand out for me as a Mastercard Foundation scholar here.
I'll come down to talk to you about what you want to be after your scholarship. But then let's go back to the basics. You know, our listeners usually expect us to give them everything in plain vanilla. Sometimes we call it in black and white. And so this usually begins with the basics. What do I need as a prospect? What do I need so that I can say that I'm qualified enough to be accepted onto this program, and more precisely at Cambridge?
Interesting question. So I'll start with talking about things that most persons would not think about when they ask them what you need. The first thing you need is to be fearless, right? I know people, some persons were expecting me to talk about the documents and the leadership skills, but I think it's important for you to be fearless. I would say that when I was applying to Cambridge, I would be sincere with you. I never believed I would get into Cambridge because I felt like, oh, why would Cambridge take me? The competition is very tough. It's too much. I need to apply to other universities as well. And I did as well. In fact, Cambridge was one of my very, very last applications. Cambridge and Oxford, though. So I would say that it takes being fearless to apply to Cambridge, and I would dare you, and I would dare anyone who is interested to apply. Don't reject yourself before the university rejects you. So the very first thing I would say is be very courageous. And then another key thing is that it requires high level of excellence as well. As a person, you don't just wake up and I've seen a couple of persons who applied to Cambridge this year who was a bit. I know someone specifically who was a bit reckless about the application and didn't even get admitted. And I could see from his documents that this person didn't put in an excellent work. And it was so easy to envisage that he would not get in. So I would say that your application needs a touch of excellence because people are across the globe, all over the world, you're competing with top students from Asia, from Atlantica, from different places. So it's important that you put up an excellent work. So I would say that excellence is also a very key factor. And then let's go back to the other basic things that people need. I would say that it's important for you, if you are still an undergraduate, to build your leadership skills, because these schools are not just looking for academic excellence, they're also looking for people who have very good leadership acumen, people who are interested in leading and making impacts globally. So as a young person, I would say that being glued to your books is not enough. Having high CGPA is not even enough, right? It's important for you to showcase yourself. In fact, some courses are quite entrepreneurial in nature, and you would need some aspects of entrepreneurship. So I would say that it's important to build both high CGPA and good leadership qualities, and if possible, get mentorship as well. It would go a long way in helping you.
So, for me to make an application, I understand now, first thing, I need to be fearless, and I need also to build other factors that are going to support my application. Now, tell me about these documents then that I need and the minimum qualifications.
Okay, so I'll do that. I'll do some for Cambridge and then do some for the scholarship as well. So there are a few basic things that you must need to get into Cambridge. The very first of them is that you need a very high CGPA, right? And that implies that for you to even showcase your CGPA, you need to submit a transcript. So if you're just starting, you need to get a transcript from your university and have it handy before the application process starts. Then also, you need to have at least a personal statement and an SOP. I should mention that some programs differ, so what you need for a particular program might not be the same with another program. For instance, in my program, you're required to submit a research proposal as well, a 700-word research proposal. But for some other courses, you don't need that. But I would say that it's important to, even if your course doesn't require a research proposal, you should at least have something in mind about what you want to do your research on. So there is your transcript, your certificates as well, your research proposal, and then the your personal statement or your SOP. In most cases here at the University of Cambridge, they would require the personal statement, which covers, a statement about you and the research you want to do, and a couple of other things, your next steps, and a few other things. So, but apart from that, you also need your CV, of course, a very standard CV. And in most cases, the CVs have to be 2-page CV. I've seen that across many courses, even in Oxford as well. I've noticed that most CVs would be 2-page CV. So you need to have a very good standard CV. And then the application fee is covered by the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship, so you may not need to worry about the application fee, which is awesome. Yeah.
So you are implying that I need to make a separate application to Mastercard and a separate application to the MSc program at Cambridge. Allow me to interrupt this conversation and bring something to your attention. Since we launched this podcast a few months ago, we've had over 50,000 people watching our episodes, which we are very thankful for, and over 12,000 hours. However, we are currently trying to build our audience so that we can get the leverage to invite more guests to our podcast and we can continue bringing more insights. As you can see in one of these sites, and I bet that's here, at least 80.7% of the people watching our podcasts are not subscribers to this channel. And what we are currently focusing on is building our audience. So I'm requesting that if you may like to support us, if you like what we are sharing, you support our channel by clicking that subscribe button so that we can grow. Our promise is to continue bringing you strong guests with more insights so that we can bring these conversations where you are.
Not necessarily a separate application. So the way it is, the Mastercard Foundation application is submerged, is more like a subset of the overall application. So you don't need to make a separate application, right? When you're applying to the Mastercard Foundation Scholars Program at Cambridge, the way the Cambridge application system is organized, all scholarships have sections under the overall application. So all you need to do is, when you come to the scholarship section, select the scholarship you want to apply for and submit any necessary documents that you need, that the scholarship is requesting for. In this case, the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship will just request a 2-paged personal statement from you. Yeah, so it's all one application system.
You know, I remember when we were having this conversation, just the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned that you worked before you thought about applying for your master's, right? Or as you were applying for your master's. Tell me about this. It means that you had some experience on your CV. What happens then if I am from the university, just fresh graduate? Does it mean I'm not going to get directly into this program, or what does that imply?
Very interesting question. If you don't have good work experience, doesn't mean you will not get in, right? Like I mentioned, it's important for you to understand the context of the scholarship and what the program requests. So for my program at the University of Cambridge, you do not need enough work experience to get in. In fact, one of my mentees this year doesn't have a work experience. He just graduated, and I don't think he's even done with his service yet. So yeah, you don't necessarily need work experience to get into well, it depends on the program. But I know that for the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship, the most important thing they need is they want to see some leadership traits in you, and they want to see your ability to drive impact, especially as it relates to climate change as well. So you don't necessarily need work experience. You just need to show potential, have some leadership experience as well, coupled with very good grades. That would go well.
Yeah, so that makes at least life a little bit easier for a good number of applicants. But then what most people won't find very easy is writing some of these 2 documents you mentioned. And I want you to assume, like, I have never seen an application before. So teach me, like a 5-year-old baby, on how you went ahead writing your SOP. Then after that, then we can come back to, if the research proposal is required, how do you go about writing a research proposal? So the first part is the SOP. How do we go about it? Yeah.
All right. So I should mention that for the Cambridge application process, sometimes you're required to write a few essays alongside your personal statement. Sometimes the essays might make up for your personal statements. Some other times you need to write a few essays. In my case, I had to write an essay, a personal statement first, and then a few other essays. One of them was a career essay. And so imagine when I'm writing a career essay and I'm writing a personal statement, it meant that I had to, be able to deploy some strategic ways not to repeat myself. But generally, for the personal statement, it was a 500-word personal statement, and because it was short, I had to be a bit straight to the point. On a normal, I would love to add some personal story to my personal statements. I still did that, though irrespective of the short word count. So I would often start my personal statement with a short story about what actually piqued my interest in that course. And in my personal statement, I had to discuss about the fact that I did development economics. So I was applying to the MPhil in development studies, and I had done development economics in my university. And one of the key topics we spoke about then was about the fact that developing economies might eventually catch up with developed countries. And so I used that kind of story. I was like, oh, how I was really concerned if developing economies would eventually catch up with developed countries. So it was something I adopted. I made it look a bit interesting, and then I explained how that made me to pick interest in development studies. And that was my first paragraph, right? It's talking about what development studies was to me and what I was concerned about. And from there, I moved on to talk about how my skills, how my experiences so far have aligned with that course. I explained how I got a first class in economics, and then how I moved on to work with a think tank. And what I did at the think tank, it was important for me to showcase that I have good work experience in the development sector. And from there, I spoke about my leadership experience. So I currently run an initiative for young people who are interested in economics. And then I went ahead to talk about that as well, how that kind of shows that I have good initiative towards leadership. And from there, I just went straight to what I'm going to do in the future. And yeah, that was the general summary. The fact that I was keenly interested in the program, and I was looking forward to building my career after the program. Yeah.
So that tells us a lot about your personal statement. And I know this personal statement thing is, I usually feel it's very interesting because I get the chance to just talk about myself and why I fit here. It is one of my favorites, by the way, when you're writing essays. And I don't want to scare other people, so I don't want to say which one is my least favorite. But then I have my own version of least favorite. Now, there are two documents that I actually just remembered. But before we go to those other documents, you wrote a research proposal. At a master's level, different people at different universities maybe get to do research or not do research at undergraduate, right? So how did you go about this writing proposal thing for a master's?
Yeah, interesting question. I have to mention that at first I was really scared because when I was doing my undergraduate research, I didn't get to write a proposal. I just wrote my research straight, and I was really concerned. How do I write a proposal at this point? So I had to, first of all, I consulted my professor. So luckily for me, one of my professors from the university was working with the research center I was working with. And I had to have conversations with him, like, what do you think I should work on? One thing I should mention is that it's important to write research proposal, yes, but it's also very important to pick a topic that would align with what the program you're applying to wants. So I was applying for a master's in development studies. It was important for me to really understand what is going on currently. What am I interested in? How do I align what I'm interested in with what is going on? So these are a few questions you have to ask yourself even before you start writing the research proposal. So I was lucky to have met this professor who I had conversations with. And after that, we sat together and decided that, okay, since I'm interested in climate change, and and the scholarship was also aligned with climate change, I should pick a topic that had to do with climate change. So that was the very first process, picking a topic, and that was how I picked the topic. And after I picked my topic, I went back. I did a study in background study. So it depending on what your program wants. Usually, the research proposal shouldn't take so much words. For my program, it was just 700 words, and I had to go straight to the point. The very first part was an introduction, just trying to introduce what the topic was about, giving a general overview of what the topic was, and then trying to bring in some context to Nigeria, which was my focus of study. And after that, I did literature review, which was the second section that actually explored what the research other people have done on my topic I tried to integrate that with my interest. And then at the end of the literature review, I gave my own research questions. I was like, okay, these guys have studied this from this angle. Now I'm bringing a different perspective to this study. And from that, I was able to bet my own research questions at the end of the literature review. And then from there, I moved to the research methodology, which covered the methods I was going to use for my study. And after that, I did my conclusion and relevance, just a few paragraphs on the conclusion of the work and how how important the work would be for not just the world, but I mean for the people I was doing the research for. So these are just it's going to be very simple and basic. But on the normal, when people hear research proposal, they think it's such a big thing. And I wouldn't lie, that was the perspective I had about research proposal before now. But since then, I've been able to change my thoughts, my paradigm about research proposal, and it has really helped me. So those are the 4 basic things you need to know about research proposal. And I should mention again, choosing the right topic is very important. And then for anybody that intends to write a research proposal, I think it's important to understand what system works in your university. So for my case, in my program, even if you want to change the topic after you resume your program, let's say within the period of gaining admission and coming over to Cambridge, you picked interest in something else, you are free, you have the liberty to change it. So when I came here, I changed my research a bit. I didn't drift from climate change, but then I moved from climate change and agriculture to climate change and education, which happens to be a bit more interesting for me. So it's important to also understand that for your program, they might be flexible with choosing topics or changing your topics in the future.
When we get to talk about research proposals, even for people applying for PhDs, they just freeze. When you tell somebody this is now the only thing now you are remaining with a research proposal, somebody just be like, okay, now this is where we stop it. And I get how you are explaining it. It's more or less like, how long did it take you, by the way, to write that proposal?
Well, because I was working, I think it took me about 2 to 3 weeks. But I wasn't confident on what I wrote, right? I still had to share it with my professor. I shared it with him and he did a review. So I think it's something for this last application cycle. I also did a couple of proposal reviews for others. And I was able to point out some things that would help them fine-tune their proposal. So I would say whenever you write a proposal, it's important for you to find someone in your field to help you review it. So don't be overconfident. I mean, even if you're good. Yeah.
Even if you think you're good.
Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned your professor a lot. And I would have really wanted to meet this guy. I don't know if it's a lady or a gent. So that I tell them that they raised somebody. How did you go through the process of choosing your references? And I hope this professor was one of your references, please. How did you go about this process, and what do they require for a reference?
Yeah, this is an interesting part. So, for my program, they requested 3 references. If I remember well, I think it was 3. I've had to submit many references these days. I find it difficult to remember how many, but I know that it won't be less than 2, even if it was not 3. So, you in that case, it's a bit different from some of other schools I've seen in the UK, because I also applied to a couple other schools where I had to upload the reference myself. But in the Cambridge case, you have to put in the details of a referee, and then they will send a mail to the person, and the person will send over your reference to the university. So I would say that the process of choosing a reference or a referee for your application has to start when you were an undergraduate. Right? And I think it's important for anybody that maybe is an undergraduate that is going to watch this video, that they understand that it's important for you to build relationship on time. So I still have a very good relationship with my undergraduate supervisor from the university. So because of that, I wouldn't lie to you. I've stressed him. I've really stressed him. And then his name is Dr. Anthony, though. And then there's also Dr. Divine. Both of them, I've had to like stress them a lot. So the professor I spoke about, because I had stressed him a lot on many other things, I didn't want to disturb him, and then I didn't get to tell him to write my recommendation letter. But for these other two persons, I had built a good relationship with them during my days as an undergraduate, and so it made it a bit easy for me to get them to write recommendations. And recently, they had to write a recommendation letter for me within 2 days. It was so you can imagine that kind of relationship I had built with them, and it's something I'm really happy and excited about. And for the so when it was time to get the recommendation letter, or to have them send the recommendation letter to the university, I had to first of all send them some nuggets or send some tips as well, because like some ideas, not should I call them ideas, or some pointers, right, about what we've done. Because usually people just send email to the professor, oh, I'm applying to this university, could you write a recommendation letter for me? Most times, even if you've worked with these professors, they may not necessarily remember everything they've done with you. So it's important for you to send your CV, send if possible your SOP, and send some pointers or reminders about, oh, we did this, these are some of the things we did, highlight it in the email. That way it's a bit easier for them to be able to write your recommendation letter, so they don't have to start from a blank slate, start writing something from nowhere. So these are some of the strategies I adopted when I was trying to pick my referees.
I don't know what somebody who just left uni without the connections is going to do, but it's up to them now to decide what they want to do. They can start building these connections as early as now, and trust me, this is something you are going to do over and over and over, because I know you made a lot of scholarship applications, and you got a good number of offers. But before we come to that, let's just get done with this document and application thing first. Did you attend an interview?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay, how did it go? Like, you sent your application and wait.
Yeah, so the Cambridge system is a bit different. Although I know in Oxford it's different. But for the University of Cambridge, you just, for my program specific, for some programs, that's true. For some programs, you need to attend interviews. I know that for programs like population health science or technology policy, you would do program interviews. That is interviews with professors in that particular department. But for my program, you don't need interviews. And I think I should make one of the major reasons would also be that my program receives a good number of applications. I think they receive up to 800 applications annually, and they have to take like up to about 60 to 70 people. So that's a lot if you were to do interviews. So I actually understand, but I know that if you left for them, they would love to do interviews. And then for the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship, all you need to do is to submit your 2-page documents. So they will assess that and then get back to you. So there were no interviews for me.
So which takes precedence before, like, I have an admission to the program, and I also have an admission. Okay, I have a scholarship offer. Which takes precedence? Do I get admission to the university first before I get the scholarship, or the other way around?
Okay, yeah. Let me explain how the process works. So you submit your application by deadline, let's say December or January, depending on your program, and about within 4 to 8 weeks, the department will assess your application, and when they are done with your application, they will send you your offer letter, your admission. So when they send you the offer letter, they will also send the list of persons or African students who were admitted to the Mastercard Foundation team at Cambridge. And then the Mastercard Foundation team will use that to access applications. And for the past few years, they've always gotten back to their applicants by April, first week of April or last week of March. So usually you get your admission around February. I got my mid-February, practically February 14th, Valentine's Day. So yeah, so you get your admission by mid-February, and then get the funding offer by last week of March or first week of April. So the admission comes first.
So I think you were admitted to more than one program, and
Yes.
sometimes I use this. I say this because I must have read it somewhere. You got more than one fully funded scholarship. So how many applications did you make? How many scholarships did you apply to?
Interesting question. I think I can't remember the exact number, but I think I did up to 11 applications. So I did the Cambridge Mastercard Foundation, and then I did the Oxford application, and then I did the Turkey government application, and then I did the Commonwealth. I did up to 5 applications on the Commonwealth. and then I did the Nesta and Ferguson scholarship.
Yeah,
University
Alan
of
Nest and Ferguson.
Yeah, exactly. So I think these are the few I can remember. But eventually I got the Turkey government scholarship and the Mastercard Foundation scholarship. So
You know,
yeah.
I know. We'd really love. This is about a Mastercard. I could have really wanted to ask you about the others, but now there's this one aspect. Why do you think now that you got an offer at Oxford for your masters, right? Last year, what happened? Why do you think was, in your opinion, why do you think you were not offered this program? What mistakes might have you made?
Okay, yeah. It's important for others to learn from my lessons as well. So when I was choosing a program for Oxford, I chose a 2-year program. So practically, I applied to the exact program. So at Cambridge, I applied to the Masters in Development Studies, and then at Oxford, I applied to the Masters in Development Studies. But then the Masters in Development Studies at the University of Oxford runs for 2 years, but that of Cambridge runs for 9 months. So when and then I didn't really understand that the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship at Oxford doesn't fund a 2-year master's program. So when I was applying, I had that in mind. In fact, I got their application fee waiver. I got the AFOX fee waiver. So in my mind, I was like, oh, I already got the AFOX fee waiver. Let's see how the scholarship would go. So and then I applied, and I didn't actually know that it was the scholarship doesn't cover for a 2-year master's program. So it's important for you to really understand the scholarship well before you apply. So that was the major mistake I made. I mean, there might be other factors that could come in eventually, especially given the fact that the Mastercard Foundation scholarships is a bit female inclined. So in most cases, they would offer 60% of the scholarships to women. So you're likely to find more female scholarship holders than male. So, but in that case, I really understood that I almost lost my chances of getting funding because, I mean, the chances of getting funding was already slim because I got an offer into a 2-year program.
Yeah, that goes a long way to remind our listeners that sometimes you need to read between the documentation, the lines between the documentation about what is on offer and their terms. And I would have really loved to see you also at Oxford, but Cambridge is equally a top university. So now,
Right.
just as a reminder to our listeners, we always get to have these conversations, and they're not just for entertainment. Trust me, because there's a lot of information we get to share here. We get to talk to you about how you can make your application and stand a chance to win these funding opportunities. These are prestigious institutions, and having them on your CV is something really good. And I hope you really find this information useful. And if you do, please consider supporting this channel and hit the subscribe button below. Now, about our guest, his name is Great. Great, there's something you do run, and this must have maybe played a role in your application. It is called the African Economic Scholars Program, the AESP. Tell me about it. What is it?
Yeah, so AESP started off as an initiative that was tailored towards students that have keen interest in public policy or economics generally. And we've been on for 2 years now. Our birthday is actually next month, May. So we'll be 2 years by May, and it has evolved to many things, right? But at first, it started off with I've always been keenly interested in policy and public policy, but then I've noticed over time that across different fields, you discover that students or recent graduates would often have something that serves as a breeding ground for them to grow up and meet kind of climb the cadre. For instance, law students often have law graduate programs, or finance students often have finance graduate programs. I mean, the medical field, they have their housemanship and all of that. So I noticed that different fields had different things. But for those who were really interested in public policy or policy making or economics generally, from the angle of policy, most of them wouldn't have any program that would help build them. So, and it was something I was always looking forward to, something that I could trainings that I could pass through that could help me to build myself. So I felt like, okay, if there's nothing, let me start it then. So that was how it all started, and I spoke to a couple of friends in economics from my university, and they gave me ideas how to pursue it. And so far, I think I would some of what we do a 2 months program for students who are into public policy or policy making, and then from then we've moved into a policy session, a policy a policy competition actually. So people write essays on policy and then win some funds. And currently we've had to introduce webinars as well that we engage in. And this year we are starting an application mentorship session, one-to-one mentorship session for people who are interested in economics and public policy. But it's going to be very limited to a few persons. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, please be among that. The people who are going to benefit. Try to reach out to him. By the way, we will leave contacts to his platform. So the links are going to be found in the video description. So once you're done listening to this conversation, you may want to go to the video description and get all the necessary information you need about him and whatever he's trying to do, so that at least, guys, we can get to share this and learn more and more. Now, there's something we call a love letter. I don't know if you know a love letter.
Oh dear, I've received a lot of that.
Yeah. Now, I don't know what the opposite of love letters are, but yours came on February 14th, the Valentine's Day, but it wasn't a love letter. It was something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it.
That day was phenomenal. I mean, it was just the admission offer there that day, but it felt more like the funding for me. I can't even wrap my head around it. So it was first of all, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't envisage getting into Cambridge. I didn't envisage that. So that day I had just finished up from work. By 5 p.m. I went for, I'm an usher in church, so I went for the ushers meeting. I just got in, and usually we sign our attendance digitally. So I just picked my phone to send my attendance digitally, and then I saw email. The first thing that came to mind when I saw the email was, oh, this is a love letter. But then when I saw that they sent 2 emails, I was like, they can't send 2 love letters. So before I even opened this, I was like, why do I have 2 emails? I was like, okay, that means it can't be a love letter. And so when I saw, my hands were shaking. I was almost crying. I won't lie to you. My hands were shaking. I couldn't hold myself. I was able to hold myself, actually. I mean, comport myself and get back home. And it was really awesome. It's a phenomenal experience. A one, I mean, it's often nice, to think about it, reminisce on it. Yeah.
So, thank heavens, it was not a love letter. Guys, what we mean a love letter is actually a rejection. So in case you are hearing that name for the first time, don't think too far. But anyway, you see, this is February the 14th. You're getting your admission, right? And now we are waiting for funding. How long did it take for you to hear back from Mastercard that you now have full scholarship?
So it took about 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
To get it took about 6 weeks. I got my admission February 14th, and then I got my funding offer on the 5th of April. So that was 6 weeks, not up to 7 weeks, the 6 weeks plus. Yeah, it was a very long waiting moment for me.
Now you got that on email also, right?
Yes.
So I have my phone with me here, and I'm holding it. I'm looking at this email from Mastercard saying, "Yay, you have your scholarship with you." What does that email read? What does it say?
Okay, the email, I think the title of the email was
Mm-hmm.
Offer of Mastercard Foundation Scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
That was the title. It was in capital letter. And then the body of the email, dear Grace, congratulations. We're delighted to inform you that you've been selected as a Mastercard Foundation Scholar at the University of Cambridge.
Mm-hmm.
And that morning, I had just gotten to the office. I got to the office around past 7. Usually, at that period, I would often come to the office early. It was very common for me to often arrive at the office. In fact, for a long time, I would often be one of the first people to be in the office. And that day, I was the very first person to arrive. And I was happy that I was the first person, because I couldn't hold my excitement when I saw it. Right? The cleaners were like, "What's going on here?" So they couldn't really understand what was going on. Yeah, but that was it. And then there was a letter attached to it with my name containing the details, and I was to upload the letter to this university portal, because when I got the offer, I had to fulfill some conditions that were from the university side. So I had to upload a couple of documents, and the offer letter was one of those. And that was the last thing in my conditions to be fulfilled. So
So
it was like
who was
100%.
this special person? Who was the first person to know that you have actually received this offer?
Okay, so it was supposed to be my mom. I called her, but I think she didn't pick. But then the next person that I got to know, okay, Well, so I had a friend. We were waiting for the offer together. So the moment I saw it, I remembered her. I was like, oh my God, I have to call her to confirm that she got the offer too. So, and I called her and she was like, yeah, she got the offer. So we were both happy. So I wanted to confirm, wanted our happiness to be full, that kind of thing. Because it would have been very sad for me if I got in and she didn't get in. It wouldn't have been nice. So yeah, but after that, I called my mom and she was teary because I had lost my dad like some months earlier. About 2 months earlier, so it was, and that was the same person that spoke to me about Cambridge. So it was very emotional and exciting that day. Yeah, but my brother and my mom were the very first few people to get to know.
Sorry about your dad.
That's fine.
So you have this offer from Cambridge, and it's a PDF document. It's a letter you want to upload to the university. First, it carries your dreams now that are just about to come true, right? And on this document, it also provides information and promise about what you are going to get as a funded scholar. Now, in this context, this was a fully funded scholarship. What do we mean?
I would say that for the program at Cambridge, fully funded has different levels. And I can confidently tell you that the fully funded at the Mastercard Foundation Scholars Program here at the University of Cambridge, it's a lot. It's a lot. So first of all, the scholarship covers your tuition fee and stipend, monthly stipend, which is the basic fully funded we know. But then alongside it comes with a laptop, and then it comes with a settlement allowance. It comes with an exit allowance. It comes with leadership. That sounds weird. Exit allowance sounds weird.
I mean, like, you have allowance to, when you're exiting, you are also going to get an allowance.
That's why I told you it's phenomenal.
I think I would be applying for Mastercard to Cambridge this year.
So it's just completely wholesome. And then there's also a leadership session with the Cambridge Sustainability Institute, which is an institute that tries to train young people on leadership and sustainability. And we had like 3 sessions with them. You have a training with them. Then, in most cases, the scholarship would also pay for dinners, pay for events, pay for you to attend events. And I also know that in some cases that can be very generous with some other issues that might come up for you, right? I know a couple of other persons that have had to be helped a couple of times, when some other things come up, you need to settle and all of that. And I'm also aware, finally, that you also get to, if you intend to go back to anywhere in Africa to do an internship for 6 months, you will be paid for those 6 months. It's a transition program. So they have a transition program. They're not just about you getting the scholarship. They want to make sure that you end up somewhere good. For instance, one of the scholars from last year, she got an internship with AFDB, and Mastercard paid her for the 6 months of her internship. And currently she's a full-time staff with the African Development Bank. And yeah, there are like many other people like that. So the scholarship is not just keen on you getting the offer or being well settled while you're in Cambridge. They're also keen on ensuring that you end up somewhere good. So there's a transition program for you as well.
There are scholarships, and then we also have prestigious scholarships. So I think this goes to my list of prestigious scholarship. Actually, we should add the word most prestigious. Let's talk about something. Stipend. I like to keep this in black. When I said, when we were beginning this conversation, I said we do things here in black and white, right? I did a post the other day. It was about how people don't understand that most of the money that students get, sometimes, not all the times, goes into their accommodation. So I'm sure, and I got a lot of messages, people asking, so does it mean that when I'm given this stipend, it's not going to be enough? Or, I mean, like, do I need to supplement this money? So I'm like, now how about we do a breakdown and talk about this stipend? So for example, somebody who is getting something like Commonwealth, they're going to have something like 13 1,300, in excess of 1,300 to in excess of 1,700 if they are in London, right? So that is the range depending on the city. So what are we looking at here?
Well, so Cambridge is a very expensive city. In fact, one of the most expensive in the UK. So the stipend at the University of Cambridge is a bit higher when compared to some other universities. I mean, apart from London, obviously, which is the most expensive. So for here, it's about 1,700, and it's not just about them. It's not the Mastercard Foundation team that sets the stipend for Cambridge. So Cambridge has a universal scholarship system, and most times you have to follow what the rule says. And I also think that even the Commonwealth Scholarship at the University of Cambridge pays differently. So the system is very much different here at the University of Cambridge, because they know that the accommodation here is very, very expensive, not just at the university level, but even for persons who are living around Cambridge, the Cambridge city itself. So when you receive 1,700 stipend, you're likely to pay accommodation from the range of about 750 to 1,000 for some persons. So persons are paying as high as 1,000. Some other persons pay up to 750, 700, as the case may be, and depending on the college. And I should mention that Cambridge runs a collegiate system, which is a bit different from some other universities. Cambridge and Oxford run a collegiate system, and the college is more like a hostel. But then it's a school, a hostel that is a school. It's a very complicated thing, but the only major thing you should know is that it's more like a home for you, all your social activities. And in fact, the tuition fees are paid to the colleges, not even the university, and that is something very tricky. But then the colleges have their own system. They run independently, and then not entirely independently, but then they run fully. There's some things they do independently. There's a college library and a few other things. So yeah, your site, the amount you pay for accommodation is also dependent on the college you are in. So some colleges are cheaper, and your choice of rooms, right? If you choose a very expensive room, you're likely to pay higher. You can pay even as high as 1,200. If you want that comfort, that's fine. But then some persons pay within the range of 750 to 1,000 on the average, yeah.
And who arranged for this accommodation? Did you arrange for it? Who applied? Is it you? Is it the university, or is it Mastercard?
So now, when you are making your application, you're expected to choose a college on a normal. You should make a choice of a college, but most times you're not likely to know what is different between this college from this college, or what should be the basis of my choice of a college. So I would often advise anybody that is applying, I don't think there's a point choosing a college, except maybe you have a conversation with someone and the person maybe is ahead of you and the person gives you insights. So on a normal, you may not choose a college because you don't understand how the college system works, and then you get assigned a college. So when you get your admission offer, the school will send your offer to different colleges, and different colleges will make a choice. Some courses are not offered in some colleges, so that means you're exempted already naturally by applying to a particular course. So, but then most times it's the colleges that choose you. If you don't choose them during the application process, then they will get to choose you. Yeah.
All right. Now that makes sense. But then, can I tell you something else?
Mm-hmm.
We still have some other discussion about where this other money goes. So on a typical day, tell me where your money goes and how it disappears.
Well, the money can go to different places. I think my money majorly goes to buying African food. You agree with me, African food can be very expensive in the UK. And I'm not used to the English food, sincerely. There's a college butchery producing nice dishes. Sometimes you go for dinners as well. Dinner is something very common in Cambridge. You can have like up to 2 to 3 dinners per week, right, across different colleges. I mean, that's even a small number. Yeah, but me, I prefer to have my African dishes. So most times I spend my money on African dishes, or maybe I trying to attend an event in London or something. Maybe you have a conference or a church program or anything going on in London you want to attend. These are really where the money goes on a normal. Yeah. for me, I think most of them, the fact that the food is expensive makes it a bit difficult. But then on the normal, you shouldn't. I think it's still enough for any student that is not reckless. It's not too small.
I mean, we need to eat fufu and jollof, of course, of course. We have to. Come on, we can't just come and
Oh
we
dear.
have to. So,
Absolutely.
on that regard, it simply means this stipend is more like enough to sustain you to have a comfortable life as a student, right? Is it?
It is. It is.
Okay.
I mean, it is. I would say that for any person that is not reckless, the stipend is actually enough, right? It's enough.
Now,
Except maybe you have high intentions to save a lot, or yeah.
yeah, unless you want to buy a Ferrari, you'll have to find something else. Now, about buying a Ferrari, by the way, I'll come to tell you something just in a few seconds from now.
Okay.
You have something called a visa. Who paid for the visa, and how did you go about the application process?
All right. So Mastercard paid for the visa, paid for the flights as well, covered the flight and the visa. So for the application process, I just needed to make sure I have all the documents I need to apply for a visa. So when it was time to apply for visa, the Mastercard, you reach out to the Mastercard team. When you receive your CAS from the university, you reach out to the Mastercard Foundation team at Cambridge, and then you inform them. When you do that, they'll book a time with you, and then you get to have a one-on-one meeting with the administrator, Chief Wallace, who has been very helpful. And then he guides you through the process and gives you the card you need to make your payment. So generally, all you just need to is have the meeting with them, and then they'll guide you through the process. And then you submit your documents, and then your visa approved. Same thing with the flight tickets. You just need to send your document, your details, and then they will send you your flight ticket information.
So how long did your visa application process take, and how long did it take for you to get the visa?
So I got my visa in 1 week, actually, which was weird. I didn't understand why, but I got my visa. I submitted my visa documents on a Monday, and I got my visa information on a Friday evening. So it took just 1 week. I picked my visa the next week, which was awesome.
That was fast. And
Yeah.
now this is where the Ferrari comes in. You got your visa, and the first thing you're thinking about is, I'm going to Cambridge. I'm going to buy a Ferrari after 2 weeks. How are you going to do that? You're going to work day and night. Tell me about what your visa says and the terms from Cambridge about working as a student.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So the visa says you have 20 hours to work as a student. So that means that you can choose any 20 hours per week, actually. You can work for any 20 hours per week, and you must not exceed that, else you'll be in trouble. But then Cambridge says, no, you're not permitted to work during term time. So during term time, which is, Cambridge runs three terms, the Michaelmas, Lent, and Easter term, and they're usually 8 weeks. So 8 weeks between October to December, early December, and then 8 weeks from January to March and all of that, and then after Easter, another 8 weeks. So for those term times, which is academic intense period, you're not permitted to work. But then you're allowed to work during the breaks, and the breaks are usually 4 weeks in between the 8 weeks, right? So you're permitted to work during the breaks, but you're not permitted to work during term times. So most times you barely find a Cambridge student working. In fact, the academic pressure may not even allow you to work generally. So
are there any provisions from Mastercard regarding you working or not?
No, not really. They don't really pay attention to that. I mean, that's so focused on making sure. I mean, they understand that the pressure is a lot on students, so you may not likely find students working.
So if I'm thinking about a Ferrari, just kill that dream for now.
Exactly. Except you want to do something else for 10. If you intend to work to end for a Ferrari,
you will get the Ferrari later. I mean, like, guys, as you've heard already, the stipend you're getting is more than enough to give you what you need. Now, you brought up something, and I was just smiling. It's called you and your African food shop, where you go buying food. Did you experience anything that you could consider a culture shock when you got here, besides the food aspect? Because that looks like you already got that shock with food.
Yeah, I think one of the major cultural shocks I got was the first day I arrived. I was speaking with someone, And I was having a conversation with, that was the first person that was supposed to take me to where I was going to stay. And she was like, oh, she was like, where are you from? I'm from Nigeria. And she's like, oh, you speak good English. And I'm like, so, but you expecting me not to speak good English? It was funny. I didn't think, I mean, at that point, I was with a friend who happens to be in the same college with me. So it was really very funny. Like, were you expecting me not to speak good English? Because I'm from Nigeria. I was like, oh my god, there are really stereotypes. And it's funny how there are so many persons actually that don't really understand how the African system is and how developed Africa is currently.
Yeah, sure. Along those
And
lines,
maybe I should
actually,
talk
you
about.
just said that word, and I just remembered. Did you do IELTS?
Oh, interesting. So my program doesn't require you to write IELTS. So Cambridge has a language center, and they have a specific English test that makes the students get to write. So if you don't submit IELTS, some programs require IELTS, but some others don't. Some others require that you write the Cambridge language test. So for my particular program, development studies, I was told to write the Cambridge language test, which is a bit different from IELTS, right? It's a bit different from IELTS, yeah, but it's not as hard as IELTS as well.
But you better not fail, right?
Exactly, because when you fail, you have to write IELTS then.
Okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense. That makes sense. Does this happen before or after your matriculation?
So it happens the moment you receive your admission. You have to fulfill the language condition before you even get your CAS. So it was part of my conditions. I had a couple of conditions, academic condition, which involved submitting my transcript and my certificate, then the language condition, the English test, then the financial condition. Yeah.
You mentioned you had a friend with whom you won this scholarship. Was she also coming to Cambridge?
So no, she didn't eventually come to Cambridge. She went to Yale. So she got an offer from Yale for a master's in international development economics. Yeah, and she went there. She's also wrapping up currently. Yeah.
Okay, so it means now you have a friend who you could have come with to Cambridge, but now you are not coming with that friend. It means you're going to need somebody else to be talking to on the other side. You need a community. How do you go around navigating social life?
Yeah, interesting. And I should mention that social life is very important here because this society is a bit different from the African society. The African society is very communal, which means that you're most likely going to find someone to talk to, friends to make. But here it's a bit different because people like to stay on their own. So, but the Mastercard Foundation scholars have been awesome, right? Both the team, the organizing team at Cambridge, and the scholars themselves, it's been really awesome generally, and they have given us a community of people who are like-minded, who you understand, who you can hang out with. So yeah, and then the Mastercard Foundation Scholars Program team, they also organize monthly hangouts for us. So we have monthly hangouts with at their office every once in a month, right? We come together, eat pizza, have some fries and all of that. And then they also I should have mentioned this earlier. It's part of the scholarship package, so you get to do a trip to a part of the UK for like 3 days and Friday to Sunday. So we had that trip in January. We traveled to Sheringham. We were there for a while. We had fun, went to the beach, and all of that. So it's a whole community really here. And then I also find very good solace from my church community as well. It's been awesome. I belong to the choir in church, and it's also a big community for me. I also meet people that are ahead of me who give me candid advice on how to pursue my next steps. Yeah.
That is so much positive feedback from from you about Mastercard. And I think I'll call those guys and tell them, you guys should come and listen to this podcast.
What?
Yeah, because you guys are doing a good job. And it is good to see that actually they take care of your mental health, because I mean, like your social life, because you know the implications that can have to your mental health. And considering how intense the program can get. About the intensity of the program, you're just about to complete your master's. How many months do you have now?
So I should submit my dissertation by June 9th, but that has to be the final copy. So I'm supposed to submit a copy to my supervisor for review by ending of May, let's say 20th of May. That's the deadline I've set for myself. So I have practically less than 6 weeks to go.
So I'll ask you two questions. They're related. They're the same question. So the first one is, what does Mastercard say about your next step?
So for my next steps, they are so interested in it, like I mentioned earlier. They don't care if you're going back to Africa or not, going back to any part of Africa, but they are ready to help you if you want to go back. And that involves, like I said, getting you a visa to any African country you want to intern with. As long as you get an internship any part of Africa, they'll get a visa for you, fly you to the place, pay you for 6 months or 3 months, depending on how long you want to stay for the internship. So they are not really so keen on where you want to stay. But if you do want to go back to Africa, they are willing to help you. And also, they also love it when some of their scholars get be a PhD in Cambridge. And yeah, I should have mentioned that. So the Mastercard Foundation team also has a mentorship program for people that are applying to PhD. So if you're applying for a PhD program here at the University of Cambridge or anywhere of your choice, they'll pair you with PhD students, current PhD students at Cambridge, and then they will mentor you through the process. So it's a whole package, and we cannot be more grateful to the team for all they've done.
That's for Mastercard. Now, what have you thought about your next step so far?
Yeah. Okay, now so you've changed the question. Yeah, there are a couple of things I'm thinking about. I want to do an internship for at least the first few months, or maybe get a role with any of the multinationals, or maybe the World Bank or IMF team as well. So I'm shooting my shots there because I have a background in economics. I'm also looking at maybe getting a PhD in development studies, a PhD in economics. So these are all the things that I have I'm trying to wrap my head around.
Yeah, I wish you all the best. If you need
Thank
somebody
you.
to hold your hand or a shoulder to cry on, whichever, I don't know which one you need, but just talk to me. We can of course discuss that. Now, we've listened to you for a whole hour, and by the time somebody usually listens to a conversation this far, this is something they're really, really interested in. And I would really want to network with you as a scholar, just to see what you are doing and probably get to learn from your experience. What platforms can I get, or which other avenues can I use to connect with you?
Okay, so you can. I'm not on Facebook, unfortunately. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best platform. You can reach me. You can just send me a connection request. Type my name, Great O Nnnamani, and yeah, you can reach me on LinkedIn. And also, my LinkedIn contains my email address. My profile contains my email address, so you can just connect with me on LinkedIn. And when I accept, you can check my email address and reach out.
Yeah, so I'll leave the link to his profile in the description of the video, and all the information, as I mentioned, about the organization he runs, and every other necessary thing you need to know about the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship at Cambridge. But we also need an inspiration from you. What do you have to say to us?
Okay, one thing, first of all, I think you should learn is I mentioned it at the beginning of this session, and I'm going to mention it again. The art of being fearless, right? Yeah, you have to learn to shoot your shot irrespective of your thoughts, and it's something I've learned recently. Thank God to a couple of friends around me who also pushed me. And apart from that, it means you also need to have the right people around you. Like I mentioned, I had a friend who was applying, and so we are trying to carry each other along, having calls, So it's important for you to have people around you who are also like-minded, who are shooting the shots like you are. And with that, you would often be encouraged even when you don't feel like. So be fearless, have the right relationships around you, and pray. Pray to God, though, and find out what His plans are for you. It makes it very much easy. Like, I won't lie to you. I didn't apply to the US at all because I knew God wanted me to go to Europe. Like I would. So it's important for you to really understand what God's plans are for you. And He's going to crown your efforts with good success.
So that was Great Nnamani, and this is the Management Diary. I'm your host, Omar Joseph, and until we meet again in the next episode, bye-bye.